Thanks. Okay, so thank you, Shirish, for such a kind introduction and also inviting me for this talk. And I would love to talk about something non-technical and share my experiences as a path to a faculty position through an industry research lab. So just to get started with the discussion, I have prepared few slides. So do I have the permission to share those slides?
Let me just check. I can make you the co-host.
Okay, let me try sharing.
Make co-host. Yeah, it's visible. Fantastic.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, so this is a very informal talk. So feel free to ask me any question that comes to your mind. Feel free to stop me at any point during this presentation. So what I thought is I give you my perspective, like career perspective on securing a faculty position via an industry path, being in the industry research lab for some time, and then making a transition to the faculty position. So, so just to get started, just a one-slide summary about me. So I did my bachelor's in electronics and telecommunication engineering from University of Pune in India in 2002. And I did my master's, Master of Technology in Electronics Design and Technology from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore in 2004. And in 2009, I completed my PhD from Electrical and Computer Engineering at Purdue University. So what my research is about, it is about integrated circuits and systems. So as shown in this picture, this is one of the silicon prototype setup that my very first student, Dr. Asim Sayal, he built this along with some other students like Teja and Shireen. They were instrumental in building our first silicon prototype design and also testing. So as a group, we build multiple integrated circuits, and also we fabricate some of these emerging nanoscale devices in the Pickle Clean Room campus, which is part of the MRC, Microelectronic Research Center. And in terms of my industry path, I have been at industry for almost 11 years. First 2 years as in the form of internships, various internships that I did. And these include Intel Labs, Texas Instruments, and Cirrus Logic. And after my graduation from Purdue, I was at Intel Labs for 8 years. And before I joined Purdue, I was in Cypress Semiconductor, Bangalore for 1 year. And in fall of 2017, I joined UT Austin as an assistant professor in ECE in the ICS track, Integrated Circuits and Systems track. So what about this industry path and then coming back to the academia? What kind of lessons or what kind of perspective that I have developed during my journey? And that's what I would like to share you, so that if you're preparing for such kind of path in the forward, that how you should plan about it, how should you go about it. So let's say, for the sake of to start the discussion, let's say you want to secure a faculty position in a reputed good university in the United States. So this discussion is or my knowledge is based on the US experience. And let's say today we are at this time frame, like spring of 2022. And let's suppose that you all are planning to graduate next year, let's say spring of 2023 or summer of 2023. Now, the critical question is, when should you transition? What is a good time, or what is an optimum time that you should transition to a faculty position? And what are the different paths that you have in order to get to that? So let's say as let's say in a hypothetical case, you graduate in 2023, and at that point, and again, I'm providing this lot of example being as an integrated circuit designer, like a chip designer. If your research area is different, the different set of illustrations may apply there. So let me just speak from my experience as being a chip designer or circuit designer. And let's say I'm graduating next year and I want to become a faculty member in a top ranked school. So what kind of things I can do? So at the point of graduation, I have multiple options. Either I can try for directly going for the faculty position. I can apply this year itself, so that I will be going for the interviews next spring to start my faculty position next fall. Or I could choose a route of going to a postdoc position in the area or in the group that you think has which is built on your own research and has a lot more promise. The third option is the industry research lab, and the fourth option is industry product group, or you can also add startup in this category. So coming to the question as to when is a good time to make this switch, if you go to a path which is not directly to the faculty position, but the rest of these three, like the postdoc or industry research lab or industry product group. So one thing you should be aware that the most young faculty award deadlines have a timeline. That timeline is typically 5 years from your PhD graduation date. For example, if you go and check the Air Force or Office of Naval Research, ONR, early faculty award deadlines, the eligibility criteria, it is typically 5 years. So by the time 2028 arrive, if you are not in the faculty position at some school, then you may not be eligible for this type of awards. And if you extend that timeline even further, that most of the early career award deadlines, they kind of phase out 10 years from the graduation day. So let's say if you are applying for Moore's Fellowship, which is given to very few select individuals having a huge impact on semiconductor technology. So if you're thinking for those kind of timelines, it will be around 2033. At that time, you may not be eligible for most early career award deadlines. So then what is the optimal time that you should try for doing this faculty position? Is somewhere between 3 to 7 years, plus minus 1 year. And the reason I'm saying this as a window and with some margin is it is not necessary or it is not guaranteed that you will land up in this type of jobs in your first trial. It might take 2 to 3 years for you to get into the right university, right research area, right location, etc. So for me, it was a couple of trials before I got the position that I was really looking for. So plan accordingly. Start from your third year onwards to look for these faculty position, and you will know internally that this is the right time for me to apply. And even if it doesn't happen this year, maybe next year it could happen, or a year after that it would happen. So you will know internally that, okay, the time is right for me to apply. So that's one thing. Now, the second point I would like to talk about is the key decision point. So let's say you graduate next year, spring of 2023, and you have 4 possible options: either direct faculty position, or a postdoc, or an industry research lab, or an industry non-research group, or a startup, let's say. So if you transition to a industry non-research group, I mean, typically it is called as the product group in chip design or semiconductors field. So the chances of you transitioning successfully from such a group to a faculty position after a few years, these chances are extremely small. And the reason is, once you are in a product group or in a startup kind of mentality, that there is very little kind of motivation to do the from that organization to go and publish in the top tier conferences and journals. So your kind of visible research productivity is either paused or is stopped depending on which company you land. For example, if you're in a stealth mode startup, that you may not even publish anything or even talk about it even to your friends or other colleagues. So in that case, whatever you're doing, maybe you're doing world's greatest research or greatest product, but until it is known to the world, you will not get that recognition. So this type of job position, if you're potentially thinking for a faculty position down the line, is in my opinion, is not a good fit. Transitioning directly from a PhD to a top tier university is also difficult these days, because for many of us, our research publications are still in progress. I mean, you are just completing your research. You haven't written your that top tier conference paper or your journal paper. And the community as such, they do not know you or your work. And it may happen that the recognition of the groundbreaking research, it can get delayed because of a variety of reasons. So while one can certainly try for this, but again, the chances that it happens for almost many of us are kind of on a lower side. Now then, there are two kind of middle ground, so to say. One is either the postdoc route or an industry research lab option. Now one can choose one of these two depending on the type of research that you are doing. Let's say your research is very applied or more of a science or technology oriented, or your research is more of a if it is a fundamental, like a very science oriented, you could go for a postdoc position. Or if your research is more of a applied in nature, for example, a circuit design related research, perhaps an industry research lab might be a better option in that case. So if you're thinking about, faculty positions down the line, your next year decision-making point is going to be very crucial, very pivotal in that sense. And that is going to have a huge impact on what you do in the next 5 years or so. So moving on, so let's say since I'm talking as a circuit designer from the circuit design's perspective, so the question is, what kind of industry labs or national research lab position should I aim for? So to me, the best industry research labs are the ones which encourage or which routinely publish at top tier conferences in your research area, because that means if you land up in one of those research groups, you will be part of those teams, and you will also be able to lead some of the research projects and also present these ideas to a much wider community. And so your research productivity will still remain visible, just like as you were a PhD student. That is one criteria. The other criteria you should choose is the labs which are visible in the conference technical program committees, and the labs which are plugged very well with the academic community. For example, if you have joined panels at different conferences, then you will see from the panelists from which industry research labs are typically taking part of it, which companies are kind of shying away from such opportunities. And also the third factor is which of these labs actively fund universities. In other words, if there is a lab that is already funding maybe 4 or 5 different university groups, academic groups, and you happen to be in that industry lab, and let's say after a few years, you decide to make a transition to the faculty position, then you have a very good contact with that industry research lab, which is kind of friendly, so to say, for academic sponsorships. So you could potentially have a funding from your own group when you start the faculty position. So that's a great advantage, especially like a jumpstart advantage is when you start your faculty career. So the question is, if such faculty, if such industry research labs are so good in terms of their research visibility, their support for academic research, and their interaction with the academic community, but the flip side is such positions are very rare because not all companies can afford to do it. Many companies need to be, even if they have the industry research labs, they need to be aligned to their business products and their roadmaps. So not every company can afford to do this. So these type of positions are very rare. And of course, as you can imagine, these are often very competitive. So if you really want to end up in or be there after your graduation, you need to start really early. And recruitments for such industry research lab, especially the top tier research lab, and it may not happen through a career fair that you go there and you hand over your resume, and in the next day, someone from that research lab will call you. Chances are that it won't happen like that. It is typically a multi-year process. It's a kind of a soft interview process. And it happens in the form of, let's say, internships or co-ops, or you have some of these industry research lab members as a part of your PhD committee, or when you go to some conferences or workshop or seminars, and you present your work, and many times these people are either attendees or sometimes they could be chairing a session. So, or sometimes you just meet them at some conference or at some, project review meetings. So through networking. So in every interaction, you should try to make sure that you should do a good job whenever you get such opportunities, be it internship, be it is co-op, or because people are kind of looking at your work, they're evaluating your work, they're also looking at you as how good of a person you are in terms of a team member, as a problem solver. Are you a kind person? Are you or are you an arrogant person? Like a personality traits. And nobody, as you can imagine, nobody likes a person who is not a good team member or who is not easy to work with, right? So these soft skills, in addition to the technical skills, are also being evaluated while you are interacting in every possible professional meetings. So make sure that you make the best of those opportunities in order to land yourself into these very competitive industry research lab positions. So again, I want to make sure that this is my perspective. This is not something that I have come to know on day one. This just happened with me. And after it has happened, once I kind of was reflecting upon what has happened best for me and what did not happen as good as I would have hoped for, these are some of my reflections on what really worked for me. And I hope if you follow like this type of thinking, some of these ideas might also kind of resonate with your situation. Okay, so I'll pause here before I move on to this faculty application type of process. Any questions, any comments, anything you want to share?
Professor, so I have a question about the labs from industry research or the universities. So I think if we're making a chip, will the industry lab, research lab be a better choice, because most industry research labs have rich money for the tape out, because I know tape out consumes a lot of funding, maybe one tape out need a lot of money for supporting this. So if we do cheap research, is there will it be a better choice for research industry?
Yeah, so the way I would answer is like this. So these days, even universities can get access to advanced technology nodes. Not every university can get, but at least select few universities, especially if you're thinking of doing a postdoc there, I'm sure they will have access to the right technology that you would need to make your circuit design the best that you can potentially make. The same is true with the industry research lab. But the biggest difference that I personally felt going to the industry and being there for some time is that you get to interact with the real real products. Like, let's say you are in an industry research lab. Let's say I was in Intel. So I used to interact with people who were developing the new transistor technology on the one side, and those who were using those transistors to make the next generation microprocessors, and then sell them in the market in high volume on the other side. Like, so we call them product groups. So being kind of in between these two groups, you get to see the capabilities as well as limitations of a new process technology in case of semiconductor manufacturing. And at the same time, you get to know what are the issues that a product group face, or when you are actually commercializing a design, a new chip, what are the different issues that I need to be aware of? Is it not just you do a design and you are done? You have to worry about the aging impact. You have to worry about the reliability. You have to worry about the security. Many different issues. You also have to worry about scalability. How do you scale from one generation of technology node to the next generation? So that kind of working within the set of real life constraint, that I think that kind of builds your mindset in the sense, when you are researching something new, let's say new circuit technique, you know a priori that, look, technology wise, this is possible, this is not possible. Product group wise, or from a business point of view, if I come up with a design which has 100% area overhead, give you some example, no one will take that in their product because I'm not able to absorb 100% area growth just because of your new technique. So that does not make a cost argument, cost value proposition. It will not make a business value proposition. So I personally feel that having exposure to these type of real world scenarios keeps you humble, like humble in terms of, technology abilities and technology limitations. And also it will keep you grounded in terms of what really matters in the real world. Okay. And for that purpose, if your area of research is applied, as in circuit design area, I would say having an industry experience, whether it's a research lab or even a R&D, advanced R&D group in an industry, that will have a lot more kind of influence on how you think. Let's say you become a faculty member later down the path, but that thinking that the grooming process of becoming a real engineer, like a chip designer, will really help you to come up with the ideas that actually make sense, that have more impact when you do your own research as a faculty member. You will always be, have those constraints or those boundaries, so to say, in mind as to, okay, I have to innovate, but I need to be aware of this is what technologically not possible. This is the business wise may not be possible, or the adoption of your technology or your circuit ideas may not be possible. So how can I come up with ideas or circuits which are innovative and yet are easily kind of a widespread use? So those type of things. So that's, for that reason, I would prefer, if your area of research is applied and circuit design oriented, I would prefer industry research lab experience over directly going to faculty position.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So mainly in the industry research lab, the research is used for commercial, right? So we are doing products and research is trade, or no?
So in industry research lab, again, depends on each company, but Sometimes they look for things which are beyond their horizon, maybe 5 years down the line, or maybe depending on it's a short-term research or a long-term research. Some of the projects could also be like a long-term, like exploring new area altogether and figuring out whether this makes sense from a business point of view. And in fact, that's where Industry Research Lab engage with university partners. And that's an opportunity for you to be that technical champion, like a common link between an academic partner and the industry, like the research groups that you are representing. So it's really a sweet spot.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Sure. Okay. Any other question before I move on to this faculty position process and how to think about it? Okay. So coming to the other part, let's say you are now thinking of applying for the faculty position. So what kind of applicant pool there is going to be? So at any point in time when you apply, let's say you are applying for a junior faculty position, like the assistant faculty, assistant professor position, tenure track assistant professor. So the applicant pool will consist of fresh PhDs from top schools, and some of them may have groundbreaking papers already published, and they have already received some recognition, some press coverage, and community are talking about or taking cognizance of their work. So we have candidates like that. There will be also candidates who are like experienced postdoc, having many top tier journals. They have a good mentoring teaching experience. They also have a proposal writing experience. So that is another set of applicants. The third set of applicants, which is a junior or mid-level industry researchers, those having access to the cutting edge technology. So if I have to label myself, then I came from this category, the third set of applicants. And the fourth one is the assistant professors who are already working at other schools, but they would like to move to a better school. So they are already in the process of their tenure track positions, but in order to accelerate their career path, they would like to move to a better school. So these are the primary set of applicants that you will find for such tenure track faculty positions. And if you just look at the ECE department, our own department, and look at the number of new faculty members there, those who have joined in the recent years, you will notice that generally the applicants who make it all the way to the end are less than low single digit. So let's say 5 or less than 5. And the number of faculty applicants that like a big department would typically get is more than 300, depending on which year. It could go all the way between 300 to 500. And again, this is for all areas, not just IC design areas, but if you have, let's say, 10 different areas, think of it like 50 applicants per sub area. And also these applicants are going to apply not just one university, but similar universities as you are also trying for. So the same set of applicants are going to apply for, let's say, another 10 plus or 10, 15 universities, just like you are doing. So the same pool is being reviewed by various universities. And in this case, your interviewers are departmental faculty members, department chairs, and the dean. So let me ask you here, if you are going to interview with a departmental faculty, right, or some chairs or some deans, what kind of things they will be looking for in a faculty candidate? Do you have any thoughts, or try to be in their shoes and see what kind of qualities or skill set they will be looking for? Any thoughts?
Their research record,
Mm-hmm.
publishing record.
Okay, publishing record. What else? So the
How
fact that
much funding they're able to bring to the university and how many students they're able to attract.
so the first part is about the research record, right? So unless you have a strong research record, like the publication record, you will not be in this list, that you will not be shortlisted for subsequent rounds. So by the time you reach this very last step of the faculty hiring process, almost all of the candidates will have strong publication record. They will be having one or two at least strong innovations in their own research area. So, and it is kind of almost sure that they are one of the best in their areas, if not the best, but at least the group of those best engineers, best researchers in their respective area. So that is already there. Coming to the second point, the how much funding or how many students, but some of them may not even have that track record. Let's say someone is coming directly fresh from a PhD program, or someone is coming from an industry lab, they will not have that track record. So how would they, the hiring committee or faculty members will judge in making that judgment? What do you think would be the thinking process here?
Depends. I mean, how many papers is published per year or something like that, or
That is already established, right? You are already there. And that's why you are being invited for the interviews, right?
what is the candidate's future goals? Like how much of a vision he has, and what is his
So vision is, vision is definitely one, and how exactly that vision aligns with department's goal of growing in certain strategic areas. So that is one. The second thing is, let's say you are getting a new team member. So I would like that team member to be a good citizen of the department, right? And I should be able to collaborate with that incoming faculty so that it advances not just his or her research work, but it may potentially help me also to advance my own research. And because the nature of research is so interdisciplinary these days, so making sure that how one can advance each other's research kind of agenda is also one of the factors. So if you can make that connection as a faculty interview candidate, if you can make that connection with not just people in your own area, but people outside of your area, that look, I have this skill set, you are expert in other area, and we think, or I think that there could be a good combination of these two skill set to address XYZ new research problem. And that has so many other follow-up projects that we could think of, or that brainstorming session. If you're able to make that connection, then you feel that, okay, you're contributing to the overall department's mission of advancing the research enterprise, and that will give you an advantage compared to other applicants. So think from their perspective, right? Someone who is able to teach courses, the current courses, and able to introduce new courses, someone who can be a good brand ambassador for our school or our department, or someone who represents our department at these top tier conferences in various areas. So these are some of the criteria that, again, these are some of the criteria, there are many more, but these are generally the criteria that the department will look for in hiring a faculty candidate. So let's say you make that transition, you decide you go to the industry research lab for now. What should you do while in the industry research lab? So you should continue publishing in top journals and conference. There is no excuse here, absolutely no excuse. because if you're a chip designer and if you're in an industry research lab, you have access to the cutting edge technology, state-of-the-art infrastructure. You also have experienced technical staff to help you. Not everything you have to do just like in a PhD life. You also don't have any obligations to write any proposals, no commitments for teaching, and above all, you are paid really, really well. So there is absolutely no excuse here in when you go to an industry research lab in terms of making like contributing to high impact research and making it visible through journals and conferences. And this will also kind of keep you active or visible in research circles, because you will get an opportunity to go to conferences, present your work, interact and network, not only to other industry kind of friends, but also with the academic circles. And this is very important when compared to the other postdocs or assistant professors who are doing the exact same thing, but while being in academia. So if you happen to be in industry research lab, aim for continuing this top tier journals and conferences. You should file as many patents as possible. This is a unique advantage for the industry research lab members. And as you know, industry typically files many more IPs than other entities. So you should certainly strive your best to file as many patents as possible. So the last point is my personal recommendation. Some of you may agree, may not agree. And I have seen people doing both. Sometimes they stick to their own research area. Sometimes they change the direction and find a completely new area. It's your own kind of a judgment. How do you perceive your current research and your future research? But personally, I feel that one should not change your immediate PhD research area, even if you go to industry research lab, because it takes time to be recognized as a leading expert in your immediate area of research. And how do you know that whether you have really become a leading expert, or at least people are taking note of you or taking note of your work? So you could just do a simple like a litmus test and say, let's say at the end of third year, you could check with your profile to see whether you are getting some invited talk or a plenary talk, maybe at a focused conference, maybe a small conference or a small workshop in your immediate area, whether you are being invited as a panelist in some small conference, or maybe a technical program committee member in your kind of a immediate area of research. So use this kind of as a metric to kind of judge yourself how you are doing in terms of whether your ongoing work is being recognized by the community. You could also serve as an NSF panelist, and this is something I was not aware of, but I have seen in the recent NSF panels that there are participants from industry labs and even some postdocs, some experienced postdoc also serve as the panelist. So if you are really serious about a faculty position, go and reach out to the NSF program manager proactively. You go and send out those emails, and or if you happen to meet them during some conference, just say, express your interest, and they would certainly like this neutral perspective of someone outside of academic circles to look at the academic work and comment on the goodness of that work. So you will get an idea that how people write the proposals, what are the areas that universities are currently looking at, and that will give you some ideas as to how do you shape your own research program when you land up in the faculty career. Another thing, when you are in the industry research lab, you could do and you should do is the outreach activity. So try to get involved in a conference organization, either technical program committee, publicity chair, web chair, or any role that you may get. Don't worry about the kind of the role, because that will give you access to the rest of the community. You will have opportunity to contribute, to show your outreach activity. You can also be a volunteer for a paper reviewer and also make sure you do a very good job, because this comes under that soft interview skills, because people will remember your quality of work. An associate editor, if he or she happens to be a faculty member in a university to which you are applying, the chances are that he or she will remember or recognize your quality of work as a reviewer as well. If you happen to be in an industry research lab and have a university collaborations, so try to be a technical champion, try to serve on the PhD advisory committees, participate in the research brainstorming sessions, if possible, collaborate with them, co-author some papers with them. If you again get an opportunity, serve on the editorial board of a decent journal. It doesn't need to be a top tier journal. Any decent journal is good enough to begin with. If you get a volunteer opportunity as adjunct teaching in any nearby college, institute, doesn't matter what college or institute it is, go for it. And you should also have a genuine interest and also good track record for diversity, equity, and inclusion activities. So if you apply for the faculty position, almost all universities these days will require you to write your letter and perspective on these DEI initiatives. And so you need to be genuine in that. It's not just for the sake of writing, you're writing that document. You need to really feel those emotions, those DEI, they should matter to you. And then you should also try to do few activities, if not many, but at least some activities that you can concretely point out to. So that is another important aspect. So these are the things that I said, what you could do while you are in industry research lab. But the question is today, what you can do today while you are still a PhD student. So the number one thing as a PhD student you could do is to do best possible research, high impact research work. You should ask yourself the question, this critical question: you are doing XYZ research, so what? Why it matters? Why would industry or community should adopt it? What problem it is going to solve? And does it going to make a large impact, or do you think this is an incremental work? So ask those critical questions that will help you to give you a clear idea as to what are the biggest problems that any research community is facing in their own areas. And then you will come up with some long-term kind of a research problem path. So choose a research area for which you are truly passionate about and would like to build upon even after graduation. And also you foresee long list of open problems. So that passion and the true passion is the key thing, because as a PhD student or even as a faculty member, if you don't have the passion to invent something new, and if you don't see yourself kind of sustaining that passion for so long, then probably you have to think again. And also you should kind of at least foresee some long list of open problems. For example, cybersecurity is a growing area. It's evolving threats coming in of multiple shapes and forms. So that could be a good open problem. Now the pandemic has given us many more open problems to work on, right? So think on those lines. What are the next high impact open and research problems that the world will benefit from? On the other side, you should get some proposal writing experience, TA experience. You should also participate in Rising Stars workshop that many universities organize. And you should also attend group meetings and seminars in overlapping areas, because that will help you to connect with those areas once you go for your own faculty careers, let it be interview or even in the actual faculty life. One thing you could do even today now is you can attend faculty candidate seminars. And while you are listening to their technical details, just pause for a moment and also analyze these presentations from a strategy perspective rather than these technical details. that as a storyteller, this technical storyteller, how would I tell this to a non-expert and still give an impression of high impact, not for the sake of impression, but really really convey the high impact of your work to a non-expert, someone who is outside of your area. So let's say someone is presenting something which is in IC design area, you know the stuff. So there's pause a moment and ask yourself how you present the same technical stuff if you were in his or her shoes. How would you educate the audience the importance of your work and why it matters and why should the community or the world care about that? Okay, so put yourself in their shoes and see how would you tweak that presentation, and that itself will give you a lot of ideas how to improve your own presentation. Another very basic step you could do is you should create a website, include it on your group or your personal website, put that link over there. You should create a Google Scholar page. You should have an email signature created with these links included in that signature. If possible, get a business card, create your or update your LinkedIn profile today, and basically try your best. And if you continue doing the good work, the good opportunities will come out your ways, and they will have to come out your ways. So with that, I'll wish you all the best, and I'll pause here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
I have a question. So what challenges do you see when you did research in Intel Labs, at Intel Labs, and now here? Did you feel frustrated at times being in academia, or were you feeling those frustrations when you were at Intel? Or is your happiness level higher? I mean, I'm just trying to ask, like, yeah, sure. As a researcher, you have an option to research both in the academia as well as in the in the industry. So why should somebody choose one or the other? So the thing is, at least based on my 8 years there and now 5 years here, I have realized that that both jobs have highs and lows. Both jobs or both type of jobs have happy points, happy moments, and also the frustration points. So let me give you an example. In case of industry research lab, sometimes if you become too much expert in one particular area, then you would be asked to continue doing same type of research again and again. And after a while, you may find it kind of saturated, or you really want to branch out, which you could do in academia on any day that you want. Right? There is no one that is going to tell you that you have to work in X area and not in Y area. So that academic freedom exists. In terms of industry happy points, if your idea gets adopted in a real product, that technology transfer real happens, then you know that in each and every product that Intel is going to make, that your nice little circuit idea is going to be there in millions of these chips, and that is going to save some milliwatt of power, and that has some energy efficiency impact. So that's the kind of the happy point there. Or you get your papers published, accepted. I mean, that is happy point in both jobs. I mean that is good thing. Patents get accepted, papers get accepted. So coming to the academia, the frustration points could be the speed with which some things happen in academia, or it could be that your proposal gets rejected. That proposal writing is not a task in the industry as such, because you have put a lot of energy, a lot of efforts and days and nights and sweat and blood in making that proposal, and it gets rejected. And you feel that that reviewer has not even read some X page and Y paragraph where I'm trying to explain this, the entire same thing that the reviewer is pointing about. But then it lies on me that I did not do a good job in explaining that in the first couple of pages itself. So each job will have its plus and minus points, like good days and bad days. The point you need to ask is, what is the core of that academic faculty research that you really like? So for me personally, it is that discussion with my students, the whiteboard discussion. Sometimes these days we do it on Zoom, whiteboards, but that idea generation part, and able to work with many students at the same time and able to contribute in idea generation, that really stimulates me. And I see myself being happy doing that for longer duration compared to doing that in industry at the moment. And that's why overall, if you ask me today, I prefer this job over an industry research job.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions? Any other thoughts, comments?
Thank you, Professor. We are also very happy to discuss with you in the whiteboard, on the whiteboard.
Yeah, and I hope we resume our in-person whiteboard meetings very soon. Let's hope so.
Yes, very, very soon. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
I'll ask another question if there isn't any other. So in one of the partner program meetings, Professor Gerslauer said, yeah, there is a lot of freedom in academia and you can choose which 100 hours of the week you want to work. That's the choice you get, So I guess what I wanted to ask was, how true is that? And do you see, like between academia and industry, specifically, like this point, like, did you see, I'm sure like in the industry too, you were working, 60 hours, 80 hours a week, but did that increase when you moved to academia?
So in terms of sheer number of hours that I put, certainly I work a lot more in faculty job than in an industry job, because this personally happened to me in industry. At least when you are in the industry product group, let me again classify these two. In our industry product group, when you come home after 5 o'clock, you don't necessarily have to think about your work. But if you are a faculty member, you are in the business of generating the ideas. That idea generation does not have any limit, or that thinking about, okay, planning or strategizing, oh, I need to do this tape out next year, I need to target this conference, this is the proposal deadlines that I have, these many students that are kind of, I need to advise, so I need to think about their funding as well. So I need to have a good pipeline of proposals. So suddenly your one-dimensional job, which is just doing your own work, becomes an n-dimensional job. You have to do service, you have to do university service, you have to do professional service, you have to be on different conferences, committees, you have to have very good papers. I mean, so suddenly one becomes n, but then the question is, do you enjoy that n? And at point, it will happen that you will think it is too much. I had those moments. I had medical condition as well last year because of like COVID and taking care of kids, because of there was no daycare, and working in the night with my students and on my research. So that had taken a toll. But hopefully now with the COVID kind of going down, that has kind of reduced a lot. But initially, I would say that it does take a lot of time and effort to build your lab, to build that research pipeline, to write those proposals, to even set up the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements with different entities, to make the connections, to graduate a student. So Yes, so it does have it does come with those kind of it's like you're creating your own research startup, which is blessed by the university, right? So it will require more effort than you just work for some company.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Does anybody have any questions? Last call for questions. Okay, so if not, I'd like to thank Professor Kulkarni for taking out time from his busy schedule to address the audience. And this recording will be available on YouTube sometime soon. And thank you for attending today's seminar. And please do join the IEEE Graduate Student Channel Slack and check out our website. And we look forward to having you on more of such events. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Shirish, for hosting me.
Absolutely.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.